getting into a PhD is less about what you are capable of. Like in a master's, if you're good, you're going to get the admission. But in a PhD, it doesn't work that way. Like you are going to have a perfect match with your professor. The professor has to be taking students that year. The professor has to have funding to be able to take someone that year. Like there are so many things that fall into place. So like for anybody who is watching this and wants to do a PhD, like I would just say that don't get discouraged if you don't get in your first try, because it's not about you. Like the process, the system is like there are so many elements that have to come together.
Hi, everybody. So today we are welcoming Meghna Mohandas. So she is a PhD scholar in the University of British Columbia in Canada. And we are going to hear more about her stories in this particular interview today. So welcome, Meghna. I hope you are doing
Hi.
great. Your family and everybody is safe and
Yes.
sound. So, first, I would like to ask you about who you are and what you do. So, can you briefly tell about your background and what are you doing presently? What are the things that you are researching on and the basics?
So I'm Meghna Mohandas. I have a bachelor in architecture. And then I did a master's in urban sociology, and now I'm doing a PhD in urban planning. So my research is focused on migrant workers in Bangalore. So I'm conducting research on specific set of demographic laborers who move to Bangalore, and like how migrants exist and produce space in Bangalore. And the reason that I have Bangalore as my site is because I worked there for 3 years, so I have like a very good background of the city, living there, working there, and yeah, that's more or less in a brief way. I think like the rest of it we'll get into it later, but yeah, this is like the overview of who I am.
That sounds interesting. So, as you said, you studied architecture. So, what is sort of your academic background? I mean, what did you study after architecture, or what are the courses that you studied, and what prompted you to think of taking these particular courses?
Yeah, so what prompted me to study architecture? Like there was really like no prompting as such. I mean, I wrote the entrance exam, I got into SPA, so I was like, okay, let's go for this. And like, it's like it was like just a very random choice. And even when I reached there, I'm not very artistic in nature, so I didn't really enjoy like the design courses as such. Like it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And then I started learning like urban planning and like human settlements, theory of human settlements, theory of urban planning. Like I was like, oh, these are like interesting things. Like I learned housing. So this was in my third year. Third year, I had urban planning, housing, human settlements. These are all the courses. Like we had a very fixed course in our program. I'm not sure how it is now, but at that point of time, it was very fixed. And these courses, like really, like I started thinking like, oh, this is so interesting, and I was actually like excited about some part of the course for me. And then like the real like tilt happened like when I did my internship, like in the architecture internship, when you go and do your practical curriculum.
Mhm.
I was like designing houses, like bathrooms for like very like for like individual residences, and very upper class kind of like houses and residences. And like I just felt like very pointless, like my like what was the purpose of learning all that theory and like and urban planning, and like that inspirational thing in me kind of like it just like questioned like why I was doing this. Like am I in here just to like make money or whatever? And that is kind of like where I found like my base. And then I went back, I had to do my thesis, so I started like reading up a lot. And that's when like I found this topic of rental housing, like low income rental housing in Bombay, which is Charles, quite interesting. And I started researching about that, and reading theory about that, and then that was my thesis topic. And then like everything kind of took off from there. Like once I got that like done, like I had some experience on working with low income housing, and then that translated into like work experience on like low income housing. And then so from there like things started moving forward. So that was the basis. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you said that you prefer the social aspect more rather than the design aspect. So is this something which you are also looking now into your PhD in UBC? So can you please tell us a little more about what exactly you are doing at UBC at this moment, which stage of PhD you are in, and also you are affiliated with which department?
Yes. Right now I'm in my first year, so I just joined like
Mhm.
4 months back. I think my PhD should take me about 5 to 6 years from now. I'm like in that stage where I'm like still trying to like refine my topic, and so the first 2 years in my program is kind of like you take classes and then you kind of like frame your research question, and at the end of your second year you write your comprehensive exam. So you should have your research proposal starting at the end of your second year. So the first 2 years you kind of like have a little bit of freedom. So like that's what I am right now. I have this broad topic in mind, but I'm still like trying to figure out like the individual elements of it. So in my work in terms of social aspects, like that's entirely what I'm doing. Like how
Right.
do you actually bring in like human based research into urban planning? So like my point of view is that architecture has become a subject in India where there's a lot of like when you look at low income houses and how houses are built, or even like when architecture is incorporated for low income groups, like there's this whole idea of aesthetization of poverty. It's about like a very top down approach, and my research is about how do we actually bring in. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the top down approach, but like you also need to have like the public opinion, right? Like you need to have
That's
your
correct.
participatory research, you need to have your ethnographic research. So like how do you actually bring in these qualitative elements? And also this is my other thing, right? Like that urban planning has become very quantitative in nature. Like it's all about data.
Right.
And like the ethnographic data, so the qualitative research keeps getting undermined. And my research is like basically a qualitative ethnographic research on how do you actually use people and people's experiences and use that to make policies. So that's the kind of approach that I'm
Okay.
taking. Um,
So my next question is uh, like as you are working with UBC right now, so can you please tell us a little more about your scholarship and other details, and like when did you apply, and what was your preferences other than UBC, or like what was the thought process in your mind behind choosing UBC?
So, okay. So I started applying. So, okay, even when I went for my master's, I kind of knew I wanted to do a PhD. It was one of the reasons I chose a 1 year master's rather than a 2 year master's, because
Right.
then I got the time to actually prepare for my PhD. But that also meant that I wanted to do a longer 5 year PhD as opposed to like a 3 year PhD, which is common in the UK. Like I said, like these two first years, these two first and second years that I get, where basically I can use the time to like formulate my research. I think that's very necessary for me. So based on that, like I only applied to like North American schools. I only applied to like one place in the UK. But like I knew I would need like a 5 year PhD. Like that was for sure, because I was not prepared with like a. I had this broad area of research, but
Mhm.
like I did not have like specifics kind of carved out, which you really need if you're going for a PhD in the UK. So yeah, I looked at urban planning departments. I also looked at a few geography departments, but I kind of knew urban planning is where I wanted to be.
Right.
So how I went about it was basically I started researching professors, like just going into compute, like going into like websites of universities, and looking at the urban planning department and looking at professors, what the areas of interest are, and where my research would match with professors. Because like very honestly, and this is what I have also been told in my process. So I started reaching out to all these professors, and everybody told me, see, like it's getting into a PhD is less about what you are capable of. Like in a master's, if you're good, you're going to get the admission. But in a PhD, it doesn't work that way. Like you are going to have a perfect match with your professor. The professor has to be taking students that year. The professor has to have funding to be able to take someone that year. Like there are so many things that fall into place. So like for anybody who is watching this and wants to do a PhD, like I would just say that don't get discouraged if you don't get in your first try, because it's not about you. Like the process, the system is like there are so many elements that have to come together.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. how did you came to know about the funding process, or like the admission process and
Yeah.
other things? Like, were you just checking the university websites, or did you have any other streamlined process?
No, it was just me going into the university websites. I kind of knew. So I had worked with someone in the UK who was doing his PhD when I was working with him. He had already kind of like, introduced me to like funding for PhDs and how. So in the UK, I think you have to bring your own funding. There's less possibilities of the university itself giving you funding because it's a 3-year PhD. Whereas in the North American universities, because it's a longer period, you are pretty much guaranteed funding if you get into a PhD program. But also like there were universities because of COVID last year. Like I had like talked to professors and professors were very happy to take me on. But then like at the last minute, they were like, oh, only if you come with your own funding can we even consider your application. So there was no point even because like I can't fund myself for 5 years for a PhD. So
Right.
like there was no point even kind of like applying to those universities. So it was just me going into website. I spoke to a few people, I mean one or two people, but it was more or less like pretty much the same thing that if you get admission in North America, you pretty much get your scholarship with that. UBC specifically provides scholarship to all its students. There's like a
Mhm.
minimum guaranteed funding if you're a PhD student there. So that worked out great. And also like there are more opportunities to apply for funding. Like once you get in, you can still apply for more grants, which is like basically like if you want
Right.
to go into research, like that's something you have to get used to. Like you're always going to be applying for grants. So it's a great experience because you're always refining your research. Like when you're applying for a grant, it's not just about applying for the grant. Like you have to answer specific questions that kind of gets you to think about your own research. Like, oh, like what is this thing about my research actually about? So yeah, that's like it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
That's great to know. And you were talking about the difficulties that you faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, what was sort of your professional journey during the pandemic? Like, uh, were you apprehensive about applying to places, or like uh, there were doubts in your mind, or did you suffer any setback because of the pandemic?
Okay, so this is I don't think this is relevant for a lot of people, but like at the time of the pandemic, I was okay, so this is getting a little bit into my personal life. So I moved to the US to be with my spouse just before the pandemic started. And in the US, like the visa he's on, like I don't get a work permit, so I couldn't work there. And I kind of moved with the plan that I was going to apply for my PhDs, and then like a year and a half later, I would like get into my PhD. So like I was not employed at that point of time. So that's what I'm trying to say. So like there was no like a backup plan for me because the visa situation with work permits is so bad in the US that I did not have any other choice. Like I was like, I have to get into a PhD, otherwise I'm just going to be unemployed for another year. Or like I'd even started making plans to come back to India in the middle of the pandemic because like I just wanted to start working or doing. So yeah, like for me it was like I had just had to push through. Like I had to get through because like yeah, it just meant another year of my life would go into that. So yeah, like so I just kept applying like everywhere.
I think that is also a very important lesson for all the aspiring PhD students, that sometimes things just don't work out as per our plan, and we just have to sell through with whatever is coming in our way. So I think that is also very relevant. And thank you for sharing that insight. So you mentioned about your master's experience, and you wanted to do a 1 year master's rather than a 2 year master's. So how was your master's experience? You studied in London School of Economics. So how did that experience help in deciding to go for a PhD?
Yeah, so my LSE masters was it's a program called City Design and Social Science, which is basically like an urban sociology course. I really wanted to do it because so when I did architecture, I didn't really get any insights into urban sociology as such, and I found it like such an interesting subject to learn about. Like my technical background in architecture, and I felt like I needed to supplement it with something more qualitative, and that's the reason I chose this course, the urban sociology course. And it was a great experience because it was like very very, so that program has both theoretical courses, and we also do like a studio kind of thing. But it's a studio where you're actually using the theory you learn and putting it into whatever you're proposing for the area that is being designed. So I really like that because like rather than focus on design elements, we were actually focusing on the outcomes of ethnographic research into the design of the space. Which was so interesting because like as an architect, you're always thinking about how you can make the space look great. Whereas here, the idea was how can you make the space very equitable? So you're actually translating your theory into like practical aspects. And I think that's very important for policymaking because like your ethnographic research, I don't think it should remain just research. Like the research is so important that it has to be translated into like policy making. So I really like that experience where yeah, like I really got an idea into how you can do like very deep ethnographic work, very deep qualitative research, and like theory, because I feel like in architecture education in India, that was the one thing that I was really missing, like very deep theoretical knowledge, which is not required in an architecture course, like for sure. But like I really would have liked to learn that. So like for me, that urban sociology experience really helped me do that. So if there's anybody who wants to kind of like move into theory, like I would really suggest like courses that kind of teach that rather than and then there was a thesis component to it, like one semester was thesis. So that really helped because you have to have a writing like a written piece when you're applying for your PhD. So my thesis became that piece, and that really helped me. I know a lot of people struggle with that if you don't have a thesis master's to produce a written piece specifically for PhD applications. So yeah, like that really helped me. Yeah.
So you were talking about, the aspects of studying architecture in India. So does your training and work experience in architecture in India assisted or inspired the helpful transition into this particular field of urban planning in United Kingdom or in Canada?
Absolutely. So the thing about architecture is there's so many courses, right? Like I mentioned before, like the design courses, I didn't really like get my head wrapped around that at all. Like even like building materials and construction BMC every semester, like with great professors, and like but like I just used to hate drafting and producing sheets. But like the courses I said, like housing, urban planning, just like even like presentations where I had to do research, and like it may not have been research like we do research in a PhD. It would have just been like going to Google search and like putting the names, but even that was so exciting. And like I had like great professors who really guided me. Like I have professors I still keep in touch who helped me in my undergrad thesis and kind of like help me like navigate the way to my PhD. So definitely like that's where I definitely found my roots, and then it's just been a growth from there. I guess the thing about architecture is like 5 years, so many courses, you can really pick what you want to do. Like you don't have to do all of it. You also have the opportunity to just explore like maybe one aspect or two aspects of it, like in the future. Like you can like lots of people do, right? Like you go into urban planning, or you go into urban design, or you go into landscape. Like you can even need to go like more artistic stuff, like exhibition design or film design or whatever. So I guess like that's what I took away from that. I took that urban planning aspect or the theoretical aspect or the research aspect and then just took it further. So yeah, definitely my roots were definitely there.
That's very interesting to know. So now I would like to ask you something a little different. So what is the fun part, I mean the non-academic part of doing higher studies in both UK and Canada?
uh, that's a fun question. London is an amazing city. I really wanted to move to like a big city. Only thing is like it's super expensive. So as a student, you can't really enjoy as much as you want to. But still, like just living in that city, like you learn a lot. Especially like okay, so I used to live by myself in Bangalore. So obviously, like living by yourself is a great experience, but like living by yourself in a city abroad is also like a very different experience. And I got that in London. I moved to Canada with my husband. Like I got married between my master's and my PhD. So my experience there is definitely like very different. But like, yeah, like it's just a lot of fun to live in a city that's like just to explore and travel. So when you're like in Europe, I guess that's the advantage. Like you can travel so much in Europe, and like I managed to do a bit of that while I was there. Even in Canada, like okay, so Canada has been very different because it's the pandemic. Like I haven't been able to travel at all.
Right.
But yeah, it's a great experience to live outside your country, even if it is just for the period. I mean, that's also another thing, right? Like once you get there, you can decide whether you want to live here long term. Do you want to go back? Because your studies are a temporary thing. So all your options are open in front of you. You can move, you can stay, you can do what you want. You have no commitment. Like you can just move around if you want, or you can like put down roots somewhere. So I think that's pretty great. Yeah.
That's correct. So, as a PhD scholar, or somebody who is researching, uh, one very important aspect is time management, because we are continuously juggling between a whole lot of things. Like sometimes we do our research, sometimes we are writing journal papers, we are attending workshops or conferences, we are reviewing papers, we are also sometimes helping or assisting our professors in teaching assistantship role or research assistantship role, and we are conducting literature review, we are learning a new software, or a whole lot of things are happening simultaneously at one point of time. So how do you manage your time? Is there a specific set of criteria for your time management, or how do you prioritize your objectives on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Okay. This is very important, I feel, for anybody who wants to do a PhD.
Right.
My thing has been, so I'm always been this kind of person who wants to do everything that you said. Like I want to do everything. But what I have learned is that you have to prioritize. You cannot do everything.
Right.
Like you'll just burn out, and you don't want that to happen during a PhD. Like it's so easy to get burnt out in your first year of PhD that you'll never make it to the fifth year. Like you'll just be burnt out so much by the end of it. So what I do is, so for example, like, so I have an additional scholarship in the first year, which I don't get in my second year. So in the second year, I have to do a TA to, get like the basic income I need to live there. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take my maximum theory courses in my first year, so that I don't have to take as many classes in my second year. I can spend more time, like, trying to earn my income. I also wanted to, like, take like 5 courses every semester, and, like learn everything. And then, like, I
Right.
had a discussion with my supervisors, and they're like, is this really necessary? Do you really want to learn this course? Is this something you really want to do? Because the course comes with commitment, right? Like, you have to do all the assignments. And so the thing is about like prioritizing. Like, if you don't want to do something, okay, you may want to develop a skill. Okay, so you can audit the class. Like, you don't have to commit to all the assignments. But like, I have tried to do it in such a manner that I'm taking 3 courses per
Mhm.
semester. And I think that's a lot. And the rest of the
Right.
time, I'm working on my own research, because that's also possible. Like if you take like 5 courses, you won't have any time to do your own research. Like you don't have time to read for your research. So I'm taking
Right.
3 courses both semester, and I'm using the rest of the time to do my research. I'm also working. So I finished writing one paper in my first semester, just sent it off for peer review.
That's
And
wonderful.
my next
So
semester,
congratulations on that.
yeah, thanks. It hasn't been accepted or anything. I just sent it, but yeah, let's see what
Still,
comes out of it.
it's a huge accomplishment, I must say.
Yeah, so yes, the next semester also I'm probably going to be working on another paper with my professor. So I need to find time for that. So it's about that, but also like I try to make sure that I don't work during the weekends. Like unless I really, 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 really have to,
Right.
I don't work during the weekends, and I fix timings for myself. And this is something I started in my master's, where actually a classmate of mine told me, like, just treat, so like 2 weeks before your paper is due, like you're just working day and night, right? Like, She's like, why don't you just set a timing, like just like a regular work day, like
Right.
9:30 to 5:30. You're going to be in the library. You're going to work. You're going to take 1 hour lunch break. You can actually get a lot done between 9:30 and 5:30 if you're not doing anything else. So you go sit in the library where you cannot watch Netflix, so you're not going to get distracted, and you just work 9:30 to 5:30, and it's incredible how you can actually get things done like that. So I
Right.
try not to work beyond 6. I try not to work during the weekends because I need time for myself also. Like, this is something I learned, like you have to prioritize your mental health also.
Absolutely.
Otherwise
Absolutely.
you're not going to make it. So these are the things that I kind of try to follow.
That's wonderful to know, because many a times we run so much after finishing targets and meeting the deadlines, we sort of forget that we need to take care of our physical as well as mental health. And it's like a
Yeah.
really important aspect, especially in the time of pandemic, and especially in the time of the fact that when everybody is part of some sort of rat race, or everybody is just
Yeah.
going after their career, and everybody has a whole lot of
Yeah.
aspirations. So that was
Yes.
really insightful, Meghna. So, one last question I would like to ask you: what advice would you like to give to the future PhD aspirants, or the first year PhD scholars in Canada who are from India? Or if somebody is interested to start a PhD in Canada and have studied previously in India?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, like, so if you're planning to do a PhD, I would really say, like, don't do a PhD if it is just to get another degree, because a PhD requires a lot of commitment. And, like, very honestly, like, if you're not interested in research, like, okay, there's a myth that if you are a PhD you will get paid more. That's not true. So
That's
if
correct.
you really want to get paid more, I would suggest getting a professional degree and getting into the professional, like, sphere of work. Do a PhD if you're really interested in research. Don't get disheartened if you don't get in your first try. It is not about you, it's about a lot of things that have to come together. So keep trying as much as you can. Like this is also like a lot of people may not have the capacity or the money or the time to keep applying. That is okay. Like, if you can't do that, it is absolutely okay. Like, don't beat yourself about it. Do what is best for you. Don't kind of like be so obsessed with it. Like, I'll tell you very honestly, I had almost given up. Like, I didn't think I would get through to anywhere, because like most of my applications came as a rejection. UBC was the last one that came through, actually. So, like, it doesn't speak anything about you. Don't get disheartened. Your skills are valued. Your skills are valued. You're going to get work and you're going to do great. So that's my advice for people who are planning to do a PhD. People who are already in the PhD, don't burn out. Like, prioritize yourself. And I think this is pretty great about um, being in Canada, that there's a lot. I don't know about all universities, but at least UBC prioritizes yourself a lot. Like, you get a lot of accommodation to be yourself, to prioritize your own mental health. And they keep trying to remind you not to burn out. So I guess, like, I'm not sure about all universities, but yeah, like, just enjoy your work. Don't stress out too much. It'll all be fine. Like, that's my advice. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
this is also advice, like, I am getting from, like, people who are in the 4th year, 5th year of PhD to me. So I'm just transferring that knowledge to other people. I don't think I'm qualified enough to give advice to other first year PhD students. But yeah, like, this is just like transferred knowledge and transferring it again.
That's wonderful, Meghna. So, lastly, one thing: if somebody is interested to reach out to you regarding, PhD process or something
Yeah.
like that, would you be available in your LinkedIn or any other social media for their assistance?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes, absolutely. You can message me on LinkedIn. Yeah. I've been helping a lot of people since I got through. A lot of people have messaged me. I've been trying to help as much as I can. So yeah, just send a message on my LinkedIn and I should reply as soon as I can.
that's absolutely wonderful. It was very nice talking to you, Meghna, and it was very insightful. And we are really glad that you could take out the time for our ArchiPhD blog. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much. It's been a great experience. It was lovely talking to you. Bye. Good luck.